Now, we are moving forward to our next interesting session, which is on the identity in a cookie-less world. So as you all know, marketers are these days gearing up to rely on first-party data to target audiences rather than identifiers like cookies. What will be the impact on targeting and personalization? This is the first question. Second would be, how will it avoid duplication across a fragmented digital ecosystem? All right. And the third one is, what are the marketers' answers to these important questions? I know each one of you would want the answers. And to get all the answers, we have an interesting discussion on that. We have with us Mr. Bhaskar Jaiswal, the Chief Operations Officer, Dentsu India. I would like to take the honor of inviting Mr. Bhaskar on stage, please. So everyone, I would request, please put your hands together for Mr. Bhaskar. After Mr. Bhaskar, I would like to welcome Mr. Ketan Bharti, Vice President, Global Marketing Operations, Truecaller. Please welcome Mr. Ketan. I am feeling immense pleasure in welcoming Ms. Shefali Gajjar Khalsa, Head Brand and Marketing and Corporate Communications, SBI General Insurance Company Limited. Please welcome Shefali, if she is there. All right. So I'm moving forward to welcome our session chair, the moderator of this session, Kosal Malari, who is a Vice President, Madison, India. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrongly. Mr. Kosal. Stage is yours from here, Kosal. It's working?
I'm audible? Yeah. Okay, hello everyone. Want to just quickly welcome our panelists, Ketan from Truecaller, Bhaskar from Dentsu, and Shefali from SBI. Okay,
we can only feel her.
Yeah. Okay, so quickly, without wasting too much time, we'll start off. You know, Jan 2020, there was a big announcement that Google made. They said that third-party cookies will no longer be collected by Chrome. I think we all went mad. I mean, marketers basically went crazy. They said, I mean, life as we know it will end and nothing will be the same again. 2020, there cannot be anything greater happening, right? And then when we sat at home for the rest of the 10 months in 2020, we possibly reconsidered our thoughts. So yeah, that happened. Now cookies haven't really crumbled on Chrome so far, but Google has said that they'll crumble by 2024 now. That said, is the cookie crumbling a reality? Absolutely, it will happen. If not in 2020, in 2024, if not in 2024, 2025, 26, whatever it is, when Google figures how to make money without cookies being around, right? There's a lot of conversation we are having around privacy, and that's going to be the reality. As marketers, we cannot say that we were caught off guard because this conversation has been happening for a while and we've had enough time to prepare for this cookieless future. That said, are we really prepared? Do we really have answers to the questions that are being thrown at us today? I don't know. But I think we have a couple of people here who will probably help us answer these questions much better. So with that, let's throw it open. So first question, Ketan, can you, in your opinion, can you enlighten us about what this cookieless future is? What is this cookie crumbling? And how are you preparing to deal with it?
First of all, thank you so much for inviting. Thank you, IndiaTelevision.com and Anil. I think it's wonderful to be here in front of the audience. So thanks for that. I wanted to start with what Bruce Almighty says, right? That's the way the cookie crumbles. Jim Carrey movie, right? Of course, as marketer, we need to be sort of be aware of the fact that yes, there may be a cookie-less world, but what it pushes us to do is to look at our own data, our first-party data, uh, and sort of innovate more uh, to whatever data we can have in front of us. Yes, bulk of our investment are going into the top 2 or top 3 partners, which will be cookieless world. But eventually, I think if we really want to know the consumer well, we need to dig deep within and see how we can follow the entire journey for the customer.
But can you help elaborate a little more on what does cookieless even mean? I mean, while it's easy to say, and we've all been saying that cookies are crumbling on Chrome, the fact of the matter is Safari hasn't been allowing that for a while now. Firefox stopped allowing cookies for a while now. So why are we panicking so much right now? Why are we having these panel discussions over the last few years rather than before?
So, I really feel that somewhere down the line, the panic may not be true. Yes, I think it may look as a facade, but honestly, from our perspective, when we work on our digital campaigns, we don't find any reason to panic, be honest with you. I think we try to sort of evolve in our set of data because from a true caller perspective, if you see that we are close to around 340 MAUs, which is monthly active users globally, that's a rich source of data what we have. That's very rich, right? You look at the patterns and then, with this kind of a data, our CRM is quite strong. Even our internal DSP is quite strong. So I don't think so we need to really panic, but yes, I mean, whenever there is a challenge, you need to look at alternatives and possibly you should always have a plan B, I feel that.
Okay, so yeah, so Bhaskar, I think it'll be interesting to hear your take because I mean, Truecaller obviously survives on collecting first-party data.
Yes, I think to me the fear is not about cookie going. I think that it will happen or will not happen. I think what the advertisers are afraid of is that if the cookie is not there, and which was in a way that they leverage of trying to create first party data where they can do more efficient buying and they own the data, right? So if you remove and they were trying, and people successfully and unsuccessfully tried. Obviously digital first brands have the advantage of having first party data, but FMCGs don't have. But if you remove cookie from the ecosystem, what it means is that the power then rests with the walled gardens. So in a way, you have no choice but to be slave to what the CPMs or whatever they dictate in that way. And therefore, they are, in a way, it becomes a seller's market rather from a buyer's market. So what the panic which you're talking about is cookie is not, in a way, the whole narrative is about technology and consumers going in that way. But you should also look at the marketplace where there's agencies, advertisers, and publishers, right? And to me, advertisers are the driving force with the money. But if the control rests with two players or in an oligopoly situation, which is with Meta and Google, that is where the fear was coming from. And obviously, whether people will be able to use the cookie, how much they use the cookie as such, as he said that 70-80% of the buys are still on Google and Meta right now. So in a way, it was not that people were using cookie data to spend a lot of money. It is that their next evolution or their hedge has gone, and that hedge, and if you don't have a plan B, it kind of brings panic to a lot of situations. So that's what my take is.
So, but do you think the marketers, well, this is all theoretical and rightly so, do you think marketers today are actually ready with collecting their own first-party data? Are they doing anything
So actually, the question is actually beyond marketing, in my view, because if you look at a lot of big organizations, right, they're still trying to figure out that whether the CDP should be in the IT department or should be in the marketing department, right? And I think that is a bigger question, that who owns the server, where the server should sit, who will store the data, where, and in obviously European companies where the GDPR is there, what data collection they can do, right? So it is all well and good saying the holy grail of marketing where you have got the consumer data and you can market them, but is it collected? There's, in fact, I would say one of the most important departments for CDP is legal department. Yeah, so if you look at on a marketing scale, we can talk about we are collecting data, cookies, million things, but whether it is usable for retargeting, it's not like Google and Apple, where you actually go and sign a 28-page disclaimer and give all your rights to them, right? That's what happens when you sign up for these services, right? But if you're actually going to, say, a website, you are just saying allow cookies, right? It does not actually give them permission to do so many things overall. And I think that is debate is still up for challenge, that even if somebody builds the CDP, right, whether the first question is whether they can use the data. Number two, even if they can use the data, how many DSPs are going to connect to them, right, for the inventory to be available. I may have a very rich audience pool in my database, but if I don't have the pipes to different networks, and that is what Google and Meta are doing in terms of the walled garden concept, is based on that the tags are owned by me, the profiles are owned by me, and I will create the lookalike audience for you. So what is happening in, say, some other market is that you have a first party data, you give say 1 million IDs, you give it to Google or Meta, they will create a lookalike audience, and then you buy. But how they are doing, what probability function they are using, what kind of fusion they are doing, that is totally a black box. So to me, the whole thing with for cookie to be very relevant, it also meant that oligopoly or 80% of spend going into channels should also change, and that is when both the things will balance out.
Okay, that's an interesting point.
I
Ketan,
just want to add here, what Bhaskar was saying is that, the legal team or the IT team should also be sort of part of this entire ecosystem. And I think that is where we would want to do it, and we are proposing that, when it's a first party data, interacting with the legal team and the IT team, because the data is, residing in the servers, and that's very critical for all of us. So taking them on board, that what we want to do, because of course, because of walled gardens, you're still restricted, you don't know how the consumer is, right? And you're not able to tie it back to your own CRM. So that's what we are doing here. I hope so it helps us.
Yeah, in fact, CDP, I think let's touch on the CDP topic also in a bit. I want to dig a little deeper into that. But one more point which was interesting here is you said that we are dependent on the Googles or the Metas for their data, and we are dependent on what they're giving us rather than using our own intelligence, for lack of any other word, right?
Yeah.
And we have to trust them.
Yeah.
Is there a problem? Like, do you think they're not trustworthy?
Yeah, so I think it is a relative trusting. So I think you trust a publisher more than others, a long tail, right, or a programmatic buy in that way. And I think if you look at one benefit of advertising on Google or Facebook is that at least your viewability and those norms are taken care of, right? And also the whitelisting of content, as they call it, because once, sorry. So, sorry. Yeah, so I was saying is that if you look at all the Congress hearings which Mark Zuckerberg attended, it was all about making that the data is safe, the content is relevant, not relevant is in their thing, but it's safe and it's not something where the advertisers or marketers are very scared of getting listed on a site which is not it's not in the A list or white list in that way. So that is what. And so to me, if you look at it, if you just look at the web traffic worldwide, right, Google and Facebook are controlling 40-45% of traffic, but ad spending wise, they control 70-80%. So you would think that why is the disproportionate share going in the thing? And which is, the answer is that it is, obviously they have reach and efficiencies and stuff like that, but it's also about trust, right? Because for you to add another ecosystem in your in the system, get verification done, make sure their long tail is good enough, and IDs is there. So to me, identity is just one part of going into of using these methods. The other thing is the trust factor, that you know you're in a safe environment, and I think for marketers, safe environment is very important. Yeah.
Fair point, Ketan.
See, the other thing what I feel is that, we marketers are spoiled by these two partners. I fundamentally feel that because it's so easily available, right? When you want to reach a large base. And that is where somewhere down the line, we need to take the risk of probably doing a standalone marketing plan, which is purely out of these two, just to see what kind of results you get. That is where, again, I said, I'm going back to that, the dependency on first-party data needs to be innovated, sort of experimented, and then applied. And I think you will need to take those hard calls that, to be as simple as that you make a plan which is minus these two, and then see what the results are.
Minus these two, then where?
Maybe,
Maybe geo ads.
actually, I was coming to that only. Maybe geo ads, maybe homegrown apps, But somewhere down the line, the ability to test and to experiment is sort of pushing us as a marketer not to do that experiment. And that is where I feel that we need to do that. And collectively, I think we need to do that, because that is where then intelligence will build in, right?
So actually, what's happening, let's say with the Google Privacy Sandbox and whatever else we are saying, right? The data is being collected. It's being collected in the form of cohorts instead of, say, individual identifiers using cookies, right? We don't really know how much data is being collected. From what I heard, pehle sirf cookie IDs used to be collected or cookie used to be collected. Now Google is also collecting your email IDs and phone numbers and whatever else as a part of the sandbox. It's just that as marketers, we don't have access to that, but Google has access to everything. And I'm sure Facebook has its own algorithm. And if you start moving out of these and shift entirely to Geo will have access to this, right?
Yeah.
So are we essentially talking about relying on only one partner for all our data needs? As marketers, we're dependent on one partner. So it becomes a seller's market, as you said. As consumers, I think I have privacy, but I'm still giving all my data away. I'm just sitting in a bubble thinking ki wow, maine to privacy bacha liya. Who wins? Who wins in this market? And either of you.
Yeah, so I honestly think that this whole debate about consumers not sharing data, right? I think especially in India, right? Like your government is already collecting all the data which it can be, right? You can't open a bank account with Aadhaar. So to me,
So you don't trust the government also?
No, I'm trusting Google also. So I know that I'm the agency side. I will go with the biggest publisher always. Yeah, yeah. So no, what I'm saying is this whole nuance, which is very GDPR. That's where it came from Europe, right? Where people value their data and privacy a lot, right? Like in India, like you can put a DND, right? But most people don't even put a DND. Maybe they like talking to telemarketer, right? So I think this illusion of like my data is very precious is only when somebody tells you. Before that, people are not worried. And to me, there is also a benefit of you sharing the data, like the ads you are getting, which you are being targeting. Obviously, you get too many ads and you feel that somebody is stalking you. But to me, that is a trade-off. And every consumer, I think, and it's also the services are free. So you get a free service, and then you get better targeted ads as a consumer, and then you lose privacy, right? So to me, it's like 2 versus 1 kind of a trade-off is there. And then if you are a very discerning, you don't trust the big tech, then obviously this privacy is a concern. To me, there will always be a form of tracking people and targeting people. That's the job of advertising. Like I always have a joke that you can run away from income tax, but you can't run away from advertising. So that's the fact of life. Yeah.
Just to add that, see, data privacy, look at it, it is how as basic as in India that whenever we walk to any corporate office, may not be fancy, or whenever we walk to a housing society, the register which has, you need to put your name, number. That's it. You're sharing your data, right, at the end of the day.
And there are people actually, you can buy that data.
That's any which ways there separately, right? Somewhere down the line, I feel it's all in your head. I'll be honest, because if you are if you are sharing that basic data, again, it's mobile number, right? It's mobile number at the end of the day, so you can track that.
You're saying privacy is a myth. Live with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with GDPR and everything, rules coming in, and given that obviously there is also legislation that the data of each country stays in each country, right? So that's already the government laws are there to protect the data. And obviously, I would think that the whole abuse of privacy is a bit overinflated in that way, because so far, like we have seen about data leaks, right? And whenever there's a data leak, it's the news all over the internet, and people ask you to change your password, and Google Chrome is prompting you about leaked password in that way. So that's one form of it. But user data, credit card data, like what data are you afraid people will know, or your neighbor will know about you, that you're afraid that you're watching a sports video on YouTube? Like, I don't think there's any privacy concern on that.
I don't think the concern is about sports, but
yeah, exactly. So then you have VPNs. So
I mean, come to think of it, right? I mean, if I don't want to see advertising, I take a premium membership.
yeah.
So in addition to my data, I'm also giving my credit card details, and I'm okay with that, right? So, but that said, again, coming back to the single channel thing, because I think that is an important topic that we should not, that we need to dig a little deeper into. Another conversation that keeps happening about being present on a single channel or limited number of channels is omni-channel tracking of the end users.
Yeah.
If I'm able to build an entire end-to-end funnel of user journey. So with this happening, do you think omni-channel marketing can happen, or single user marketing? Can I track the user journey?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the Google Meta merger once that happens. But yeah, but to be honest, I think that is a big difficulty, because the the publishers, it's their in own interest to create a bigger and bigger walled garden. So I think if you like take some other example, right? Like if you take an example from China, where like Ali and Tencent own the whole ecosystem. So they have got a social network, they have got a e-commerce network, they have a gaming network, they have a chat software, they have got everything. So in a way, that kind of thing where you call super apps, where they offer every service in the, then you kind of get an omni-channel. And in fact, if you look at the narrative in India, if you go outside anywhere, where outside China, the concept that it's a duopoly, right? You need Meta and Google for different needs. Obviously, there's video advertising, search, and then social advertising. But in China, the conversation is when Ali or Tencent is going in pitching, they go and say that we have a full service suite. We'll give you the omni-channel view, but you only spend with us, right? And both of them have 70% reach in the audience. So there is a situation where maybe it will be favorable for marketers that the two players are so big that then they become the buyer's market. Right, because right now, because of the fragmentation, it is obviously you are kind of putting, there are different channels you have to buy everything, and then you are not getting singular view on, say, your video buys and your social buys and your search, right? Because there are three different ecosystems right now. But if Google was successful in social media, for example, right, then we would have a situation where potentially one publisher could offer you a single view.
So Bhaskar, what I'm hearing from you, you are very pro going of having only one or two players in the market and not necessarily a lot more.
No, I'm not pro, but I think that is how media works, right? Like to me, there are hardly any small media players, right? Either they get merged or aggregated with the bigger media players eventually, right? So if you look at, or right now, if you look at 10 years back, Google buying YouTube, they could see it, or Facebook buying Instagram, right? So they are just going to get bigger. Or if you look at the bouquet of channels which we have for Star or Sony or Z right now, right? So that is how the media business works. That its scale is what advertisers are buying, and that it will become bigger in that way. So yeah.
So Ketan, is that something you would be okay with, having one or two players in the market, or would you want more choices?
See, as long as the fundamental principles of reaching the audience is fulfilled, for any campaign, we are fine with it. It can be also one channel, we are okay with it, as long as I know that through this partner, I am able to reach my desired audiences. It's all about maximizing reach at the end of the day.
So actually, let me twist this a little bit. Well, I know you're talking from a marketing perspective, Ketan. Truecaller also sells inventory, right? So where would Truecaller be, what is the space Truecaller would be in? Because it's technically not Google, it's technically not Meta, it's not Amazon, it's not Jio. And so how do you sell?
So, from a Truecaller perspective, I was talking about 340 million, 70-80% is India. So that is close to around 230 to 240 million, right? That's a sizable audience what we have, and also the kind of demographic what we have. Like, Gulshan was talking about metros, tier 2, tier 3 towns. Close to 150, 160 monthly active users come from tier 2 and tier 3. And that's what our selling proposition is, that in tier 2 and tier 3, which is population probably between 10 to 75 lakhs minus the metros, that is where the growth is coming, and that is where we are present.
So in fact,
including vernacular. And the other thing for us is that, which I was talking to you earlier also as well, right? Such a basic app, it's a basic necessity. So by default, that gives us an advantage of being present in almost every third or the fourth phone, especially in Android where it is 95% market share.
yeah, so actually, see,
I
that's
just
where.
want to add
Go on.
one point. When I say that when we are looking at a very big player, it's not about, I'm not talking about ownership. As long as Truecaller inventory is available in a single view on a trading desk by Google, to me, that solves the advertiser's problem. So it's not about whether Google owns everything or not.
But
or,
the data would rest with Google after that.
Huh?
The data would
Yeah.
rest with Google. You're dependent on Google
Yeah,
for
so
all the
they will
data.
control the end mechanism. But to me, like the more platforms I need to kind of set up a campaign in, the more efficient I'm getting, not as an agency in terms of manpower, but in terms of my learning, my benchmarking, my optimization, So in terms of that, it will eventually come in that way. In fact, Trade Desk, which is a very big trading desk and RTB platform, they talk about consolidating the rest 55% of the inventory at one go. That's their vision.
No, of
Yeah,
course. I mean,
yeah.
as an agency, it's always to have lesser number of, to have one single platform, because then I get a single view, etc., etc., etc. But again, anyway, I think that's something that we all understand, that power will eventually probably still rest in terms of data, not with the end consumer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but fair point. And
No,
also,
the power is always with the end consumer. They can delete apps. So to me, and to me, that is always the consumer. We always underestimate it, And to me, you would have seen charts of adoption, right? Like how fast TikTok reached 1 billion consumers or much faster, right? So if you look at it, the entry barrier to reach 1 billion users is much lower. Like it may have taken Google 20 years, Facebook 10 years, TikTok 3 years, right? So to me, as the form is evolving, the inventory will also change. So we having a thinking that who is controlling the data? Obviously, the consumer is controlling data. The consumer is essentially responding to the benefit he is getting from that platform, right? We have seen Facebook decline like crazy. So it's always going to be rest with the consumer. It's just that what utility as a publisher or as a media house you're going to give to them. Yeah.
fair point. So now let's say marketer still wants to keep data, and you obviously both of you touched on this, right? We spoke about CDPs, etc., and we spoke about how this confusion whether the legal team should own it, or maybe the sales team should own it, or whichever other IT team should own it, and so on and so forth. And that's all. I'm hearing a lot of confusion. Do you think there are marketers who are actually ready with this? I mean, are there examples you can give about?
So you have to look at the type of marketer you are, right? So if you are, like I said, a digital first marketer, you would have all the first party data you want. So if you are like Flipkart or Amazon, or not, let's not talk about the media houses, but even if you are like Myntra or Nykaa, you have all the first party data.
Truecaller.
Yeah, Truecaller. Yeah, you have all the first party data.
Thanks
that
for
way.
plugging in.
But I think the second is obviously if you look at the FMCG brands who were historically the biggest advertisers and who obviously have the most say in all the marketing methodologies and stuff like that, they are making an effort to build a CDP. There have been, like, I would talk about some media pitches happening where the ask was to do beta testing on lookalike audiences, on trying to source 1 million IDs. We know, like, P&G and Coca-Cola's CMO goals are that we should have 1 billion IDs on a CDP, right? So from the top level, they recognize the fact that they're doing. I think what is happening right now is there's pilot testing happening in different markets and the investment which they are making. I think in the markets where there's more fragmentation, I think it becomes more necessary for you to build a CDP. Like I was talking in India where 70-80% goes to Facebook, Google. I think you are already getting rich enough data on brand usage, on video watch, and consumers in that way. I think the missing piece right now is the e-commerce, right? Because you are actually, if you look at why Amazon is going to be very big in the future, and that to me, that is the third part, because they can give you the full funnel in terms of at least search, looking at added to cart, browsed, overall. And to me, that is something where looking at just a video consumption kind of an outfit to looking at where e-commerce is happening at scale. To me, that is the hedge which the marketers will look at it, and then you kind of balance your top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel advertising by looking at Facebook, Google versus Amazon or Flipkart. Yeah.
What's your opinion?
See, I'll be honest, like it may sound very cliched, but at the end of the day, it's all about you innovating it, right? I think that is where it's going to push us. Somewhere down the line, these radical changes which happens, like a cookieless world, what you're talking about, right? It will push us to sort of innovate. And I feel that is where the trick for us is.
Fair. So actually, we are almost done with the time.
Yeah.
Just one last point or question rather, right? And I think all three of us and probably the audience has reached to the conclusion that, in school we heard this, right? That energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It only gets converted from one form to the other. So probably what we're hearing is data can never be created nor destroyed. It just evolves from one form of storage to the other form of storage, right? That said, would you be willing to give up access to your data to have a better experience? Or would you want to keep the privacy intact and move on to a more...
Yeah. For me, as I talked about, like to me, the trade-off and the benefits of sharing data with the platforms for zero cost and having a network effect is much more beneficial in that way. So to me, and I think most of the consumers, kind of given that Facebook and Google have so high users, most users actually think about this thing. I think it's more of like a minority who has a higher share of voice who shout about it, which is right, because you need contrarians in the system who can question when these big players go wrong. So I think the balance is right, and then if you are willing to pay for it, then so be it. Yeah.
Ketan, do you think
So for
it's
me,
very few users who have a lot of high voice who shouted it, or you have a different experience about it?
no, so that's what I was about, I was thinking about the answer. And for me, at this point, it is, let's be very secretive about it. Yes and no. Don't ask me why yes, don't ask me no. Why no?
So just
Keep guessing.
So just for everyone's reference, when we were sitting outside and discussing about how each of us will approach this, Ketan said, I will not give straight answers. I will be diplomatic. Bhaskar said, I'm here to create controversies.
Which I failed. So.
So yes, so that's it. I think we are out of time. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's our time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Thank you.